You've been told your entire life that the world works on a set of visible, agreed-upon rules. That's a complete lie. See, underneath the surface of every single human interaction, every deal you make, every relationship you're in, every meeting you attend, there's an invisible architecture of power, and it's governed by rules that are never, ever spoken aloud. You've been taught to believe that things like empathy and compassion and caring, that these are virtues, right? That they make you a strong person. But what if I told you the very thing you think is your greatest strength is actually the source of your biggest vulnerability? What if in the real world, the one who cares more is always the one who gets controlled? Welcome to Unspoken Rules. Look, we're not here to make you feel comfortable. We are here to arm you with the psychological truths of social dynamics that most people are just too afraid to even look at. So let's pull back that curtain. Our very first principle is probably the most fundamental law of social physics. Seriously, it governs everything from romantic relationships to billion-dollar corporate takeovers. It is the raw, unfiltered power of caring less. Now, this isn't some motivational quote I just made up. It's a recognized sociological law. It's called the principle of least interest. And it states, very simply, that in any relationship, the power balance always tilts away from the person who is more emotionally invested. Plain and simple, the one who needs the relationship less controls it. And this is not some new idea. A sociologist named Willard Waller figured this out all the way back in 1938. So for almost a century, this uncomfortable truth has been studied and it's been validated over and over again. The person who is willing to let it all end, well, they're the ones who get to set all the terms. You see this play out everywhere. I mean, think about a negotiation. The person who can genuinely get up and walk away from the table, they hold all the cards. Their lack of neediness, their genuine indifference to the outcome, that is precisely what gives them control. It's a perfect illustration of how detachment becomes a strategic weapon. And, this isn't just some theory for the boardroom. This dynamic is constantly at play in our most intimate connections. Just think about the relationships you see around you. How many of them feel perfectly balanced? Well, research suggests not that many. Now, look at this number on the screen. 40%. What does it mean? It represents the hidden imbalance that defines so many relationships. Way back in a 1984 study that focused on lesbian relationships, nearly 40% of the people involved reported an unequal balance of power. And what was the deciding factor? You guessed it, the person who was less dependent on the relationship consistently held more power. Emotional dependency, it turns out, directly translates to a loss of control. Okay, let's really break down the mechanics here. Look at this first row. When you have high emotional involvement, what's the impact? A reduction in your power and influence. Your behavior, your signature, it becomes all about seeking closeness, which just exposes your vulnerability and your anxiety. Now look at that middle row. When there's unequal involvement, power just automatically flows to the person who's less invested. And we see this because they start to dominate all the decision-making. And finally, the third row shows the ultimate power move, attachment avoidance. This leads to sustained power, and it's achieved through strategic withdrawal and just being emotionally unavailable. It's the art of becoming untouchable. Okay, so to really grasp how this all works, you have to understand a crucial distinction. Not all social rank is the same. There are two fundamentally different hierarchies going on all the time, two different paths to get to the top. Let's explore them. So on one side, you've got power, which is just raw dominance. As you can see, it's all about controlling resources, usually through intimidation. Power makes people turn inward, focusing only on their own needs, and it actually kills their empathy. But on the other side, you have status, or prestige. This isn't taken, it's given. It's earned from others out of respect for your skill. And high status actually orients people outward, making them more fair and more aware of other people's perspectives. So here is the crucial point, and I want you to really get this. The principle of least interest has absolutely nothing to do with earning respect. It is not a tool of status. It is a raw, coercive tool of power. It works by leveraging the threat of withdrawal, which is a form of intimidation, to gain control. And your brain? Well, it's hardwired to spot the difference instantly. Dominance is signaled non-verbally, right? A head tilted down, no smile, taking up a ton of space. Prestige, or status, is signaled with the head tilted up, a real, genuine smile, and more subtle, confident posture like an expanded chest.
These are ancient automatic signals of social rank.
So this brings us to the internal state you have to cultivate to wield this kind of power effectively. And it's not about being loud or aggressive. It's about building an untouchable mind.
Forget that Hollywood image of the screaming, angry boss. Real power is quiet. It's the ability to stay completely calm and non-reactive when you're facing social pressure or provocations or emotional appeals. It's a profound signal that you have control over yourself and, by extension, control over the situation. When you are emotionally detached, you literally become immune to influence. Your decisions are driven by your own internal compass, not by some desperate need for social approval or validation from others. And this non-reactivity is read by everyone else as a signal of high status. It makes you psychologically untouchable. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is just a mindset I can adopt. But the reality is so much deeper than that. This kind of detachment has profound biological consequences. We're about to go from the psychological straight into the physiological.
This ability to stay detached, it's not just some mental trick you play on yourself. It literally builds a physiological shield around you, protecting your body from the very real physical damage of social stress.
See, your brain is built with what's called a hierarchy perception network. Parts of your brain, like the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, are constantly and unconsciously scanning your environment to figure out who has rank and where you fit in. This is a primal survival mechanism. And when this network in your brain perceives a threat to your social standing, what scientists call a social evaluative threat, your body gets flooded with the stress hormone cortisol. This is that feeling you get when you're afraid of being judged or rejected or being seen as not good enough. And this is exactly where that physiological shield comes in. The detached, untouchable mind short-circuits this entire process. By psychologically distancing yourself from what other people think, you actually prevent that cortisol surge. You protect your body from the chronic inflammation that social stress creates. I mean, let's just look at the hard data right here, comparing the touchable to the untouchable. First up, cortisol, the stress hormone. For the socially reactive person, it's spiking under threat. For the detached person, it's regulated. They're shielded. Next, look at the brain's pain center, the DACC. For the touchable, its activity is high. It's signaling intense pain from rejection. For the untouchable, it's low, a clear sign of resilience. And finally, your immune response. It's a mess for the reactive person, dysregulated, inflamed. But it's stable and even boosted for the strategically detached. This is not a mindset. This is a biological reality. And all of this brings us to the end. But it's also a beginning. Because the information you have now, it presents you with a choice. You have now seen the invisible architecture. You've been shown the unspoken rules that really govern our social world. And here's the thing, you can't unsee this. So the only question that matters now is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to go back to living in ignorance, just allowing yourself to be a pawn in a game you don't even understand? Or are you going to make a conscious choice to see reality as it is, not as you wish it were? If you are ready to commit to awareness over illusion, then hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, join the conversation down in the comments, and become part of a community that is dedicated to understanding the unspoken rules. Join us.